When a guy reaches out after a time of no contact, it's very rarely just a random act. There's almost always a deeper reason behind it. One of the biggest reasons, and you might not love hearing this, is that he's trying to check if he still has some access to you. That's it. That's the real test. He wants to see if the door is still a little bit open. And the way you respond in that moment tells him everything he needs to know about how much control he still has in your life. Now, he might not even realize he's doing this on purpose. A guy isn't sitting there thinking, let me check if she still likes me. But what does happen is this natural urge to reach out and test the connection. Not because he's ready for something serious, not because he's magically changed into the man you deserve, but because he wants reassurance. Reassurance that if he needs a little boost for his ego, you're still there. And that's why you have to be extremely careful. He might send a message that looks sweet, innocent, something like, hey, just thinking about you, or hope you're doing okay, and suddenly your mind starts spinning. Oh my God, he's thinking of me. Maybe he misses me. Maybe this is the moment he finally realized what we had. But what if I told you that message wasn't really about you? What if it was more about him, his ego, and calming the unease he feels because you're not available like before? That's what makes this moment so tricky. The test isn't obvious. He's not going to say, I'm just checking if you still care. Instead, he wraps it in casual, friendly, or even flirty language. If you answer right away, if you sound too excited, if you open up emotionally like nothing happened, he gets exactly what he came for. Confirmation that you're still there. But here's the thing. He might not even do anything with that information. He might just disappear again. Why? Because he didn't reach out to rebuild the relationship. He reached out to know he still could. That's what emotional access is all about. Does he still have your attention? Can he still make you respond? Can he still affect your day? If the answer is yes, he walks away feeling good about himself, while you left feeling confused, disappointed, and hurt all over again. Some people thrive on knowing they still hold a piece of your heart, even if they have no intention of earning it. They don't really want the relationship. They just don't want to lose the option. And that's where you have to be strong. That's when you have to pause and ask yourself, why is he really reaching out? Has anything actually changed? Is he offering anything real, or is he just seeking some quick reassurance? Because when you don't reply immediately, when you don't fall right back into old patterns, it shows him that access to you isn't free anymore. It shows you have standards. That you're not sitting around waiting for him. That you value yourself enough not to be someone's emotional backup plan. And that's where your real power is. This isn't about playing games. It's not about ignoring someone to get revenge or trying to trick them. It's about honoring your growth. You went no contact for a reason. You needed space for a reason. Whether it was to heal, to clear your mind, or to protect your peace, that decision mattered. It was you saying, I matter too. So when he tests you, don't see it as a compliment. Don't treat it as proof that he's changed. See it for what it is, information. Is he showing up differently, or is it just the same old pattern in a slightly new form? Because the truth is, if a man genuinely wants you back, he won't test you. He won't send vague texts. He won't leave you guessing. He'll show up clearly, consistently, and respectfully. Anything less is just noise, and sometimes silence is the strongest answer you can give to noise. When you choose no contact, you change the game completely. You shift the power in a way that makes the other person deeply uncomfortable, especially if they were used to having easy access to you. It's not just about you being gone. It's about the silence they're forced to sit in. When a guy reaches out after no contact, it's usually because he feels the loss of control. Control doesn't always mean manipulation. Sometimes it's very subtle. It's the unspoken idea that if he messages you, you'll reply. If he calls, you'll pick up. If he needs a little attention, he knows exactly where to find it fast. That quiet access gave him comfort. It told him you were still emotionally attached, still available, still orbiting his world. But when you go no contact, you pull that comfort away. You take the rug out from under him without warning. You stop texting, you stop calling, you stop showing up. And suddenly he's faced with something he hadn't really thought about before: uncertainty. Uncertainty is uncomfortable, especially for someone who was used to being in charge of the emotional dance between you both. Now he's left wondering, is she really gone? Did I lose her for good? Has someone else caught her attention? The guy who once felt confident now starts second guessing, and that's a shift in power. This is why you often see lazy outreach after no contact, a random meme, a "hey, saw this and thought of you. Are you good?" Don't confuse that with real effort. It's not genuine reconnection. It's a test. It's a quick temperature check. It's not about love or change. It's about seeing if you're still there. If you respond right away and pick up where you left off, he knows he still has that power. He knows he can still pull you back whenever he wants. And once he knows that, he might vanish again, leaving you feeling even worse than before. But if he reaches out and you don't answer, or you reply in a calm, detached, neutral way, he starts to feel the real cost of losing you. He realizes that influence over you is slipping away. Here's the hard truth. Most people don't reach out after no contact because they truly want you back. They do it to see if they still have to put in the effort. If you're still easily available, they don't have to change anything. They don't have to apologize. They don't have to grow. But if you're no longer easy to reach, no longer easy to predict, they face real pressure. Now they have to decide, are they ready to step up? Are they willing to actually pursue you with real effort? Or were they only ever interested in keeping control? There's a big difference between someone missing you and someone missing the feeling of you missing them. That second one, the ego-driven one, is where breadcrumbs and half-hearted efforts live. That's where confusion and heartbreak come from. But when someone misses you for real, when missing you leads to real reflection and growth, that's when things can change. That's when you see who's truly serious. Because a man who truly wants you doesn't test you. He doesn't send weak, confusing messages. He shows up clear, consistent, and sure. No games, no guesswork, no half-truths. No contact works like a mirror. It reflects your value back to the other person. It forces them to see what they lost or realize they never valued it properly. The guy who reaches out just to test you, he's not doing it because he's sure of anything. He's doing it because your silence made him uncomfortable. It forced him to feel the loss of control he once had over the girl who would have answered right away. That's the test you don't see. And when you pass it, when you don't react the way he expects, you take back your power. You tell yourself, I won't settle for crumbs. I won't stay confused. I won't let someone hover in my life without real clarity. And that's how you stop attracting games and start inviting real love into your life. If your silence makes him uncomfortable, let it. Because if someone has to lose easy access to you to realize your worth, they never deserved it in the first place. Silence say more than any words ever could. Time and silence, two things we often underestimate, are actually two of your greatest weapons when it comes to attraction and keeping your power after no contact. You might think silence is nothing, but for someone who once had your time, your heart, and your energy, your silence can feel deafening. People don't always miss you the second you go silent. Sometimes, at first, they feel relief. Especially if things between you were heavy or confusing, they feel like they got their freedom back. They might even think they made the right choice. But give it time. That freedom often turns into emptiness, into missing, into regret. That's when they start to wonder, what are you doing? Who are you with? Are you even thinking about them anymore? When you were always available, they didn't have to wonder you were there. They knew. But when you disappear, when you stop giving energy, you create space. Space creates curiosity, and curiosity is powerful. The mind hates open questions. It wants to fill the gaps. It wants to understand the story. When you were present, the story was simple. She wants me. But now they're unsure. And that uncertainty triggers the ego. Because let's be real, most people assume they are the center of other people's worlds. They believe you're still thinking about them. When you go quiet, you challenge that story. You force them to question themselves. And curiosity grows. Curiosity lingers longer than desire. It eats at them during quiet moments. When their phone doesn't light up, when they see you looking happy without them, they start to wonder. And that's when they might reach out. Not always because they truly miss you, but because they can't stand the curiosity. But don't rush to answer. Don't fill the silence for them. Because if they can reach out and immediately get a reply, they never have to sit with their feelings. They never get to fully realize what losing you really feels like. If you hold strong, if you stay calm and confident, you give them a chance to feel that loss deeply. Only then can curiosity turn into real reflection. Only then can real effort come forward. Because someone who is serious will show up with more than just curiosity. They will show up with clarity, with purpose, with action. And if they don't, your silence already gave you the answer. They're not really asking, how can I win this person back the right way? They're asking, can I still get them back without much effort? That's the real test. It's very subtle. Sometimes it comes as a casual, hey, just thought of you, or a random meme they know would remind you of an inside joke, or maybe they reply to your story with just a fire emoji. None of these actions are deep or meaningful by themselves, but they are planned. They're small, low-effort signals to see how you will react. If you reply quickly, warmly, or too excitedly, they get their answer. You are still emotionally available for them. And what do they do with that knowledge? Most of the time, nothing. Because now they know they can reach out whenever they feel like it and get a little boost of attention from you. It feeds their ego. But here's the key point. They didn't have to make any commitment. They didn't have to open their heart. They didn't have to risk anything. You did. That's what makes it a test. It's a quiet game of emotional chicken. Who will flinch first? They want to see if you are going to be the one to break the silence with emotion, if you will open the door again, if you'll send a big message, maybe even suggest meeting up. That way, they don't have to put effort in. You do it for them. And once you do, you hand them exactly what they wanted without making them earn it. You see, this is one of the biggest shifts of power after a breakup. When you chose to walk away, to set a boundary, to protect your peace, that was a strong move. It showed self-respect. But when they test you, they aren't just checking if you still care. They are trying to get you to give up that strength first so they don't have to risk theirs. They want you to carry the emotional load so they don't have to be brave. They don't have to say, I miss you. All they have to do is throw a few crumbs and see if you follow the trail. And if you do, they feel validated. Not because they are serious about you, but because they can still trigger your feelings without offering anything real in return. And if we are being honest, a lot of people aren't really looking to fix the relationship. They're just looking to fix how they feel. They might be lonely. They might be feeling insecure. Maybe they saw you post a photo looking happy or heard you were doing well without them, and suddenly their pride kicks in. Wait, are they really moving on? That fear wakes up, and instead of dealing with it maturely, they send a test to ease their own worry. But here's where your real power lies. When you recognize that these little messages are just emotional tests, not true efforts to reconnect, you stop giving away your peace for nothing. You stop believing that one random text means something important is happening. Because real effort doesn't look like a "hey stranger" message. It looks like steady actions, honest communication, true vulnerability, and real effort. Anything less is just noise. And when you don't bite the bait, when you don't instantly reply and make them feel safe again, you force them into a real choice. They either have to walk away or show up properly. If they walk away, you learn something important. They were never willing to do the hard work. They weren't prepared to offer anything real. But if they step forward with honesty, apologize, explain themselves, and take real responsibility, then that's a different story. More importantly, when you don't give in easily, you show that access to you is no longer free. It costs something now. It costs real effort. It costs clear words. It costs showing up in real ways. And when someone sees that, the whole dynamic changes. You are no longer someone they can play games with. You are someone who doesn't need their little crumbs to feel good about yourself. And funny enough, that's when you become even more attractive, because now, if they want you back, they have to step up to your level. So when that casual hey pops up out of nowhere, take a breath. Ask yourself, is this a real move toward reconnecting or just another test to see if I'll break the silence first? Because once you understand the difference, you stop falling into old patterns. You start standing in a new kind of strength. Let them be the one who does the work this time. Let them be the one who takes the risk. When you were always available, always messaging first, always keeping the connection alive, you became expected. Your presence became background noise. It's not that you didn't see your worth, it's that your worth was always there, so it didn't feel special. When people know they can have your attention anytime they want, they stop valuing it. But when you pull away, truly pull away, something powerful happens. Your silence becomes louder than any words you ever spoke. Suddenly, your absence feels heavy. It speaks volumes. Now, he doesn't get your attention, he doesn't get your energy, and he feels that loss. No more validation through texts, no more comfort that you are still around. That silence, that missing energy, stings. Human nature reacts much more strongly to loss than to gain. People don't always appreciate what they have until it's no longer there. When you step back, it creates a vacuum. And that vacuum feels uncomfortable to the person who once received so much from you. He may not have even realized he was taking you for granted, but now that your light is no longer shining on him, he feels the darkness. That absence forces him to rethink things. He starts wondering, why haven't I heard from her? Did she move on? Was she more important to me than I thought? Those questions bother him, not because he's romantic, but because his ego is unsettled. The confidence he once had about your presence is shaken, and that discomfort works on him. Here's the important part. You don't need to prove anything. You don't have to post happy stories or fake your life looking perfect. You don't have to message him, I'm over you. Your silence says everything already. It quietly but powerfully says, I'm not waiting for breadcrumbs anymore. It says, if you want me, you need to show up fully. When you were always showing up before, it made it easy for him to be passive, but now the burden of action is on him, and that discomfort grows the longer you stay quiet. He might distract himself at first. He might tell himself, she'll come back, she always does. But as time passes, that fake confidence starts breaking down. Doubt creeps in. And with doubt comes desire. True desire doesn't come from easy access. It comes from scarcity. It comes from realizing something valuable isn't just sitting there anymore. We want what feels rare. We cherish what feels special. And when you stop pouring your attention, time, and energy into him freely, he starts to realize your value. You are no longer a given. Your attention was a gift. Your presence was a privilege, and when he really feels that, when he feels the true loss, that's when he might come back. Not with a lazy hey, but with real action, real effort. Mexico, because your absence taught him something your presence never could. It showed him the contrast. The difference between having you and losing you. And that contrast is unforgettable. But remember this only happens when your silence is real. When you're truly detached, when you're not sitting by the phone hoping he'll reach out. Because if you're still emotionally tied to him while pretending to be distant, he'll sense it, and it won't have the same impact. True silence, the kind that commands respect, only comes when you've turned your focus inward, when you've chosen yourself, when your happiness is no longer tied to whether or not he returns. And if he comes back, really comes back, with true intention, clarity, and respect, you get to choose if he deserves a place in your life now. Maybe you've grown too much to ever fit back into the old version of the relationship. Because real love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself. It doesn't ask you to overgive. It meets you where you are with respect, effort, and presence. So if you get that message, that little breadcrumb after a long silence, remember this: your silence is already speaking for you. And if someone is meant for you, they will meet you there. Not with a test, but with a real step forward. Because sometimes it's not your presence that reminds them of what they lost. It's your absence that finally wakes them up.